at that, like, I got really depressed, right? Like, it was in that, like, after graduating high school and purchasing these cars and all in this kind of season in my life that I got depressed. And I think the reason why, right after purchasing the car, right?
Which one?
The
Audi?
Audi,
Okay,
Audi
yeah.
4, and then it all got messed up, and then eventually that car got totaled, and then I went to the Honda dealership, and then I've purchased the brand new Honda for $24,000. Did I tell you that?
Yeah, you did tell this story, and then you also told us that you had like 25% interest rate on that thing.
That's right.
Wild.
And it was insane amount of. So I feel like I almost like a $32,000 like in Honda Civic.
Wow.
Civic. Yeah, it's not Accord. Yeah. And while I was working at the sushi restaurant, like that lady has like heard how much I paid for the car, and then she was like, "Oh my gosh, you got ripped off."
Absolutely.
Really bad.
Really badly.
And I was also going to a coding boot camp, and then because I had to pay like insurance and car payments, and that's why I kept driving Uber, Lyft.
That must have been like $1,000 a month or something altogether.
It was like $700.
Yeah, no, I believe it. Dang.
Yeah, $500 for the car payments, and then like $200 for like insurance.
My goodness.
And then like gas.
Right.
Because I was driving Uber and Lyft.
Oh, right.
And then like.
Oh, yeah.
And I would make like a $200 a night, but I wouldn't drive like every day.
Right.
I would drive like a weekend, which, I mean, to be honest, like that's what I love about like America, right? It's like entrepreneurship. Like you can literally choose like what to do, right? Like nowadays, I mean, there is a lot more of like a flexibility of like you can choose like, with Uber, like delivery apps, like Uber Eats, DoorDash, like Instacart,
right,
and Uber and Lyft, of course. You can work as like a delivery or like a driver, and there's so many options out there. But I think for me it was like driving was fun, but also at the same time I didn't feel like that's what I was gonna do for the rest of my life.
Good, yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like, at that, like, I got really depressed, right? Like, it was in that, like, after graduating high school and purchasing these cars and all in this kind of season in my life that I got depressed. And I think the reason why, it's like, when you think about, like, so when I came to America, like I didn't know what savings was, right? Like a saving, like I didn't have the concept of like money saving, like because I was taught to live like I live like day by day, right? I didn't have the concept of like saving and concept of like investment, and one of the reasons why I got depressed, I think, was because I was broke. And the reason why I was broke is because like I was keep spending money.
Right.
And the reason why I was keep spending money was because like if I have this new thing, it might change like my environment, right? That's
you talked about that. Yeah,
it's like a
changing the environment.
Owning something new made me feel like having a different environment, right? It's like having a different bedroom or like changing up the. I guess it's like a kind of like a retail therapy.
That's right.
While I was broke.
Well, yeah, that's right. That's a dangerous combo. And I have actually a question for you here. I realized sharing your story, obviously difficult situation, perhaps not to the North Korea level, but this is still like financial stress, right? Although some might say that like, well, that's way better than North Korea. It's a different kind of a stress, right? It's also very like almost in a way life-threatening, right? How much anxiety you live in and how depressed you can get.
Yeah.
And add that to your desire of wanting to change environment or own new things, I recognize that you still worked for everything that you've had, like whether it was loan or whatever else, right? Like you still like worked honestly to pay for that.
Yeah.
And in the past episodes, you talked about how in order to make a living, you joined other kids on the street. And, they kind of essentially taught you how to steal. Not that you couldn't do it, but at some point, something must have crossed your mind such that like, oh, like maybe you steal, or maybe you don't do things so honestly. Like, I mean, I'm sure the temptation must have crossed your mind. I mean, I see that you're just, naturally very a man of integrity, but other than that, how come, right, you are able to stick to just honest work and paying for the car or whatever that you wanted to get?
That's such a great question. Yeah, I mean, I guess stealing was in my blood. Some people actually enjoy that. Like some people actually really enjoy, stealing things, and like both, because they don't have, like they don't have certain things, but also they just do it because it's fun.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think for me, I just like hated having the guilt of like I stole this, right? And what if that person is looking for it, right? And like
it probably would be,
yeah, right. And then like how would I feel like if somebody stole this thing from me?
Oh wow!
Like how would I feel?
Oh wow!
Right. And yeah, you're right. It sucked.
Oh
like,
yeah, I bet
having to like really, like working like 8 hours. Right after high school, like working my butt off, but still being broke. It sucked. And not being able to, trying to spend money, but I don't have any money to spend. It sucked.
Yeah, right.
And it just day by day, it's like I'm working, but why am I still broke?
Yeah,
it's like
right.
I feel like I need to work even harder to be more broke. And it was. I feel like it was like a vicious cycle.
It is.
And I mean, like 50% of Americans still lives on like paycheck to paycheck, right? And that's something. It's just capitalism. I think it's. I don't think we can do anything about that unless like we have an idea and we actually, like how do you say, like a blooming the idea, or like a you capitalize on your ideas and kind of like, let's build an app, right? Let's build an app and write a code, build an app and sell the app and then make money off of that.
Right.
Like things like that.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, this, by the way, is a nonsensical phrase. It was originally, I think, came about to just make fun of people saying this, but or thinking this, like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, right? It's kind of in part an idea of American success, like you do it yourself, right? You figure something out. But I think in a way, right, like you figured your way out, but the fact that you had all these experiences of people almost like actively coming after you. You talked about how moment you walked into the dealership, the guy salesman's like eyes turned into dollar signs. And for the people who are not well educated on personal finance or finance in general, or are in these vulnerable states, it seems that capitalism has its own ways of really screwing them over almost perpetually. And I'm really glad you made it out. And I also, but I also feel like this episode is probably what a lot of people would resonate with you, because they never experienced the hunger of North Korea, but a lot of people in America have experienced what it is like to be robbed of the opportunities because they lack the money or education, and just being, like you said, in that vicious cycle.
Yeah, and I mean, like, not just the like autos, right? Like, not just the finance with you're financing a car. It's about like a credit card too.
Oh yeah.
Like, if you don't read like really carefully of what the credit card companies actually like APRs that they're offering you.
That's right.
It's like 31%. It's like, and the minimum payments, like if you don't pay off the credit card, like at the like a statement cycle, like that 31%. It like really kills you.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
you'll never get out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's why they always like ask you to pay just the minimum payments.
Yeah.
That's fine, but credit card companies actually love that. And I have also some. Well, while I was actually buying all those cars and whatnot, I had a Patelco credit union. I'm not sure if you know. It's like a small credit.
No, I don't think I've. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I may have seen it.
Yeah, credit union. And I got a credit card. It kind of felt like to me like a free money.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
like,
I get that.
I didn't get the concept of like in North Korea too. Like even though I didn't steal, like there is a thing called wesang.
Right. So
and
it's like putting it on your tab and never closing it.
But 먹튀기. 먹고튀기.
Yeah.
And maybe like.
So that's a concept of a dine and dash for those of audiences, which probably are most that are not Koreans. It's kind of like a dine and dash, but we use that word to say anytime anybody just bolts after owing some money or service.
I don't know. It felt strangely like, oh yeah, credit card. Like it's like there's a one great Family Guy episode where this Peter Griffin talks about like how his credit card debt, but Anyway, I may actually just link that for somewhere.
Yeah, sure.
Patreon, but yeah, I was saying that credit cards and like the owning a car, it's like it could really screw you over, and that's one thing that I'm still like learning and also like paying for it. The mistake that I've made in my past, I'm still carrying that mistake and still carrying that burden until this day.
Wow.
And I'm like, I gotta tell people about this, don't open a credit card.
Right.
But I mean, like, if you can pay, like, if you can just completely pay off, like, at the end of the statement cycle, credit card is like great way to build your credit, and it's a great way for you to, it's free.
It's called being a deadbeat customer, because from a credit card's company's perspective, if you pay off your credit card bill to the full extent every month, then you're not owing them any money. You're not paying any interest.
That's right.
So the credit card companies often have these like benefits cashback, right? So you're actually taking money from them.
That's right.
So of course, credit card companies hate this little trick of actually paying off your credit debt.
Yeah.
But again, like it's for many people, it might be easier said than done kind of a situation, because I find myself very privileged to be able to live and have learned such a way that I don't live with any debt currently. But some people, they have families, and then other than using credit cards or maxing them out, or even like borrowing from other less reputable sources, that's the only way to say get your kid to see a doctor, right? Or afford food. So, very, it can be really heartbreaking, and get people to the levels of feeling like it's just as bad as being in North Korea. In fact, there are people who have ended up in South Korea through, resettlement, escaping and resettlement. And I think there was at least one case of somebody who wanted to go back to North Korea, because the financial stresses of capitalism was too hard to bear.
I mean, that's a great point that you bring that up, because back in 2015, so South Korea, like a governmental program, actually conducted a survey of like measuring the happiness of North Korean defectors, because there were at the time about 32,000 North Korean defectors were settled in South Korea, and more than 50% of North Korean defectors said, "I'm not happy here."
More than 50%.
More than 50%.
Wow.
So more than half of them said, "Yeah, I'm not happy here," and I can actually vouch for that, because friend of mine, well, many friends, not just one friend, but they resettled in South Korea, and they get financial help from the government. South Korea, well, almost it became regime.
I know, one president sure tried.
But after the money ran out, like he didn't know how to save, he didn't know how to work, right? And right after that,
really similar situation as
I did, and he, instead of like powering through, like trying to find something to actually work, like, do something with, he actually went out of country and he resettled in Germany. Because like they have like a free education, free healthcare,
right? Okay,
and free, so he actually resettled there illegally. And then I'm not sure what happened now, but that's not unique. It's very common amongst like North Korean communities, and even in LA as well. There are over 2,000 North Korean refugees that living here illegally.
That's a lot. 2,000.
Yeah, that's a lot. And some of the North Korean like friends that I know in South Korea, they don't even tell people that they're from North Korea because
there's a stigma.
Right? Yeah, stigma of like, oh, you're from North Korea, then you must, living off of our tax money, kind of like thing.
Right.
So, well, that's another whole topic to talk about. But at least for now, we gotta talk about my story.
That's right.
Let's
back to the story.
Yes, back to the story.